episode of the Youth Ministry Booster Podcast. My name is Zach, working hang out in the garage with my friend Shelby.
What up?
Hey, what's up? Yes, we're still on Chad vacay. So Chad's out busy traveling doing. So this is our special series of guests on the Youth Ministry Booster Podcast. And this is my dear friend, and so, I'm like a neighbor, like down the road.
Right here.
This is Shelby Millis from Asbury here in Tulsa hanging out. So hi, friend. How are you?
Hi. I'm so excited. This is awesome.
This is so fun because I feel like we are coffee shop buddies, youth ministry buddies, but this is like now official. It's like it's like podcast friends, and we've got some fun things that we want to talk about and jump into. But we'll get into the questions. I want to know, how's your summer going? How are you making the most of summer 2024?
Yeah, summer's been great. As always in the youth ministry world, summer is the mix of things slow down and yet speed up
Yes.
at the same time, and the schedule is never the same.
Yes.
So this summer...
Every week's a new week. I mean, who knows? You could be at camp one week or you could be solving a crisis the next. Yeah,
exactly. Yeah, our students are scattered to the wind, and we just see them when we see them. But my summer has been great. I've loved it. I've made it the summer of self-care.
Okay.
Yeah, it's been awesome. My husband built me a big old porch swing bed, like twin size.
Yes, okay.
Yeah, so I've been chilling there.
So not porch sitting, porch like swinging, like full on, like laid out, ready
like
to go.
napping. Like I will take a full on nap out there.
Outdoor naps? Yeah. I'm here for an outdoor nap. Okay.
Yeah. And every Friday's been pool Friday at the neighborhood pool for me. So working on the tan.
Okay. Is Pool Friday like no phone Friday? Is that like a phone free zone, or is it like a do not disturb kind of thing?
It's just I like text my friends and I'm like, hey, I'll be at the pool from this time to this time. Come, be there.
Okay.
Or not.
Okay.
I'm going no matter what.
Little standing invite if people want to come. This is where you can find me. Okay. Well, you know that's good. I wish, man. The pool would be nice to have nearby. That would be, especially Oklahoma heat. I don't know where y'all are listening from, but Oklahoma heat these last few weeks it's been too much.
It's been bad.
It's been too much. The humidity plus the heat.
I mean, it feels like a swimming pool outside today.
Yeah, like the air tastes bad. Like literally, like I felt bad. Like you're like greeted at the door, and I was like, ugh, I'm so sorry. You're like, no, it's fine. It's
It's warm, and like you go outside. You go outside for 2 seconds, and you're like, okay, well, I feel disgusting.
Yeah.
Like, and I can't recover.
Right. Do we bring extra changes of clothes
the answer
for
is
the middle of the workday? Yeah.
Yes.
That's what all those extra youth ministry camp t-shirts are for.
Exactly.
Just, 4 of one and roll it through.
Yeah. That's all I wear, and I just have multiple in my bag.
Love it. Well, Shelby, I want you to get to know our folks a little bit better. Tell us a little bit, like, youth ministry is such a strange kind of thing and an odd kind of profession. And you've been doing this for a while now.
Yeah.
So, like, tell us how you got involved in it. Like, it's always the really interesting story for folks is, like, of all the things you could be doing, here we are, you're doing the thing. How did you wind up doing all this?
Yeah. So my story, honestly, like, goes way back. I grew up in church my whole life and grew up in an awesome church. Shout out to my Carbondale Assembly people. Like, love it. And was in 7th grade, and out of nowhere, random worship night, just felt like, I think I'm supposed to be a youth pastor.
Oh, okay.
I mean, like a slap in the face. Never had a moment like that with the Lord. And like little 7th grade me was like,
no,
that's got to be wrong.
Divine calling in middle school.
Yeah.
On par for youth ministry. Yeah.
And I really was. I was like, that's got to be wrong. And so I told my youth pastor, and he's like, no, like that's it. That's what you're supposed to do. I'm
okay.
Like, okay. I don't know what that looks like.
I love the pastoral assurance. Like, no, it sounds great.
Yeah, you should do that. I'm like, well, I don't even know what that means. Like, you're just going to be a youth pastor. I'm like, okay. And just kept on keeping on, like, all right, I'm just going to figure this out as I go. And was super blessed with a youth pastor who pretty much never told me no. Like, if I wanted to lead a Devo at camp or, give a mini sermon, he'd be like, okay, do it. Go for it. Every opportunity I had, he was there for.
Yeah.
And that was a blessing.
Well, and that's such I think an important piece of youth ministry is the chance to figure that stuff out. Like, it's not just the chance to respond to the call, but to like test the call, I think in some ways. Yeah.
So I just kept on that track, figuring out as I go, went to ORU for ministry and leadership, graduated from there, and started work at Asbury Church literally 2 days later.
Yeah, that's right.
No breaks, no days off.
Well, here's the thing. If you're in youth ministry, it's a minister's market right now. If you are looking for an opportunity, I can't promise you'll find you a great church.
Right.
But we will find you a church.
For sure. No, for sure. And like literally I started work. They're like, hey, can you start tomorrow? Like the day after graduation?
We'd love to have you start Sunday.
Yeah. And I'm just like, I have a graduation party that my mom's kind of planned. I probably should be there for that. So I started 2 days later.
I love that you were like probably getting invited to like future students' graduation parties as you were doing your own graduation party.
For sure.
Perfect. That makes sense.
For sure was.
Yeah, I
and
love it.
I've just been at Asbury ever since, 6 years.
Love it.
And started in the middle school role there as a middle school associate and later transitioned into a director role.
Yeah.
And that's been it. That's all I've done. I've lived that life the whole time.
Love it.
So.
Well, okay, so one of the things that we talk about a lot in ministry is especially the 6-year mark. And we got to know each other a couple years ago, working on some projects together. But there is that like initial rush of like, oh my gosh, what am I doing? Into the like, for some folks, year 3, year 4, maybe I shouldn't be doing this. But something happens in like year 5, 6, or 7 where you've done it long enough that you've kind of seen it. Yeah. Some of the discipline things or the weird curiosities of adolescence things, like those things have like floated in and out. Like what is something now like year 6, moving to 7, 8, 9, like what are you doing differently now than maybe you did the first couple years?
Oh yeah. So I started that first year 2-ish. I was still in seminary, so I went straight into my master's for my undergrad. So I was working full-time in youth ministry, doing seminary full-time at breakneck speeds, and I just was either working or doing school. I was dating my husband at the time, so we were also dating in the midst of that, but he definitely did not get the majority of my time. But I just worked a ton, which was great. I was hyped. I mean, I'd been waiting for this since 7th grade, and I was finally in the middle of it. I'm like, this is the best thing ever. I want to do my job and do it well, which was great. But I was tired 2 years in.
Just doing it on empty, just 100% running on empty.
Yeah, no boundaries, no, like, I would do anything, any night, any day. If I got done with homework at 9 and still was like, I could write my sermon right now. Yeah. Okay, I'll do that.
Just stay at it. Yeah.
Which was awesome. It was a cool season, but I was tired 2 years in. And so now on the flip side, not the best. I still tend to be a workaholic. That's my temptation. Okay. But I set pretty good boundaries now. Like Fridays are my day at home alone. Like it's been Pool Friday this summer.
Yeah. Shout out to Pool Fridays.
Pool Friday. Highly recommend.
Hashtag Pool Fridays. Yeah.
Pool Fridays. But Saturday is really, I've become very disciplined. Like, that is Sabbath. Okay. Like, Saturday is my day of, it's the only day off my husband and I have that's the same. Yeah. So if I can get all even, like, chores at home or random things done around the house on Friday, Saturday is us time. Okay. That is quality time, and I don't work. Okay. At all. Like, I turn the out of office on, and nothing happens.
Oh, I love that. Well, okay, so let's put a pin and come back to that a little bit, because I do think that's one of the things for some of our friends in ministry, especially as a hard-earned lesson, is that sometimes the day off from work and the day that we Sabbath, but also try to be present with our family, get smushed into one day. Yeah. And that isn't necessarily like healthy for everybody or whatever. And so tell me a little bit, like, what are some things Sabbath-wise for you and your husband? Like, how do you make that not just a day of no work, but like, because you use the phrase true Sabbath. So how do you like make that true Sabbath?
Yeah. So for us, like I said, if I can get any of even my like home responsibilities done on Friday, I want to get that done so I can just focus on him. And he gets up before me.
House life, appointments, whatever.
Yeah, I try to do it on Fridays, if at all possible. Yeah. And even Saturdays for us, like, of course, we have family, we have friends, and people want to hang out on the weekends, and we'll say yes to some of those things. Yeah. But if it's become like, hey, we've hung out with family, friends, whoever, 3 Saturdays out of the month, we might need to say no to something if it comes up. Like, we look at our calendar pretty hard and say, we really haven't had a true Saturday quality time that's just ours. Like, during the fall, that means, honestly, football all day long together on the couch. Like, that is what we do.
That is your joint activity together. It is. That is a shared time.
Oh, yeah. That is us. Good. From, the kickoff in the morning, early games, it didn't care who's playing. We are watching. Okay. And that's just our quality time. Yeah. So we might even say no to good things. Yeah. Like good hangout times, but we just prioritize us. Yeah. So,
again, it's such an important thing that often, like, because ministry is never done. No. And I think that's one of the things that's really hard to tell someone who is super charged up is, well, it's so important. Why wouldn't I always do all that I could?
Yeah.
But there's always more to do. So, okay.
Well, and like for me, I'm trying to stay in it. Like it's been 6 years.
That's right.
And sometimes that 6 years.
I'm just trying to stick around here, bud.
Yeah. That 6 years feels like 60 some days. But I want to be in it, 10 years from now, 20 years from now. And I've already, like, only at 28, almost 29 years old, I've seen good friends already leave ministry, already burn out.
Yeah.
And I don't want that. And so I also don't want to burn out my family on ministry either. So setting the good boundaries now when it's easier.
Yeah, yeah. Because the longer you take, the harder it will get. Because those habits take form, right?
Yeah.
Like that's one of the things that I'm still trying to figure out is that how much like habits kind of always win. Like whatever. Like if you get accustomed to do a certain thing, it will win out against your willpower.
It's your default setting.
Yeah. You just default into it.
Yeah.
Right or wrong. So, okay, friend, people want to know what's working in your ministry right now. Like what's something that you're like, man, this is it. We tried this, but it's this. Like what is, if there's secret sauce or if there's original recipe, what's the thing that's working right now in your ministry?
Right now for us, so this past year, our high school associate, Blake, he launched our first official student leadership team.
Okay.
And it's been great. I mean, he took it so intentional of an application process.
Yeah.
We had them interview with the two of us. Like we came in like dressed nice and expected them. Like,
okay.
We wanted to help them with their interview skills too.
Like across the table, just like formally across the table.
Yeah.
Excellent.
We like raised the bar, and we made it a thing. Like, hey, this is a big deal. This is important. This is a responsibility. This isn't just a title for you. We want to give you ownership. And we've learned a lot doing it.
It's not just youth group like 3.0 or whatever.
Yeah, it's not the cool kids club. It's not the social club. But it's been so cool to see, even just having a few meetings throughout the year, how much ownership they have then brought to Wednesdays, to Sundays, the energy. They come to us with ideas for camp, or honestly, they've gotten real honest with us. They're like, hey, that was good, but like maybe we don't do that again. Like they feel like comfortable enough telling us like, hey, we loved it, but maybe let's make it even more fun. Or hey, what if we do this? And it's pushed us. I gotta say, it has pushed our team, because my default setting, just because I'm a logistics, how is it actually gonna work? Honestly, I tend to be the no person when someone comes with an idea and I have to fight it real hard. And sometimes I'm like, what if we did a 3-day lock-in where we never leave the church? And I'm like, no. But it's been good for me, even of like, okay, tell me more. And we've taught them, like, they pitch us. Like, they will pitch us ideas. And I say, give me a plan. Give me the logistics. How are we going to do it? And seeing that, like, excitement in them, and again, kind of the ownership that I felt. Yeah. I was told nothing but, yes, go and do. And so trying to then instill that in them and them feeling the same ownership, it has grown me, but it's really, like, grown our youth group. And they're running things.
Well, and again, like that is the chance in youth ministry to test this stuff out, to see maybe not even just individually, but collectively. There are so many conversations with youth ministry leaders where they're like, man, like we want to do like this 1-day thing. What should we call it? I'm like, ask your kids. Yeah. Ask your kids. Like they're turning to like their peers, but have your students turn to their peers. And again, it cultivates that relationship, especially if it becomes that trust circle. Like, and I do love that you named, like, it's a little bit hard earned, but probably worth it.
Well, and it's funny too to hear like the things they enjoy, because we sit around our table and come up with ideas. We're like, what if we did this? Yeah, and they're like,
wouldn't coffee be great, y'all? Yeah, they're like, we hate coffee.
Yeah, they're like, don't do that. Or they'll be like, you've got to do this game again, and we're like, that was the worst game ever. It's like, no, we loved it. I'm like,
especially if their faces were like not thrilled at the time, and yet they was like that was their favorite thing. Yeah, like I'll never get over coming home from like a camp and everybody being like, man, that one thing that we did was so fun. I was like, y'all hated it while we did it, but that was the thing they talked about. Yeah. And you can't know unless you open up those communication channels to like not just like, what do y'all think, but have them sit down and really talk about it.
Yeah, it's just hilarious. Like our example this past year at camp, we planned this we knew it was going to be a gross game for a high school late night. It was all like food-based games, and it was meant to be kind of gross. We knew it'd be gross. It was 1,000 times grosser than we ever intended or expected. There may have been vomiting. I may have been gagging for most of it. And we got done with it. And in the midst, they're like, this is ridiculous. What are you guys thinking?
Yeah.
And we're like, we don't know
You're
either.
crazy. Yeah.
And we get done with him. We're like, okay, well, we're never doing that again.
Yeah.
We get back from camp, and they're like, guys, next year, we already have ideas for how we can make that more disgusting. I was like, I won't be able to be there if we make it more disgusting. But I was like, you guys actually liked it? 3 of you threw up. They're like, yeah, that was the best part.
That was the best part. Yeah, it was like, oh, dude. And then Delaney threw up all over Tiffany, and it was hilarious. Yeah, it was the funniest part of camp. Okay, then you have to tell us, like, what were some of the things? Like,
So
fill us in, Shelby.
Yeah. Like, what I would have thought should have been the grossest part was actually tame. We gave them like 50 pieces of Hubba Bubba like gum and had them chew it up.
Gumball.
Yeah, and start like sculpting out of it.
Okay.
So the whole thing, their end goal was to make a sculpture or a rendering of one of us on our team out of these food concoctions. It was bad. So that was the tame one. We were supposed to have pudding, and it wouldn't set up, so we mixed basically liquefied chocolate pudding in with instant mashed potatoes together.
Wait, what happens when you do that?
It looks like mud.
Oh, my God.
It's awful. And we put little accessories for their sculpture in there, and they had to bob them out of there, like with like no hands, bob out of there. That smelled awful.
Okay.
And then the worst, which sounded like the best, or the easiest, I guess, at one point, we layered this table with basically every condiment you can imagine. Mustard, mayonnaise, ketchup, syrup, chocolate sauce, everything. Big layer. And they had to designate one person on their team to push a pile of spaghetti noodles that we had cooked with their nose down the table for someone else to catch at the end.
Does that have like an official name? Or
No,
like
it was just disgusting.
Yeah. Oh my gosh, just dragging it across the tabletop.
Yeah, and that's how they got the noodles for their sculpture, which I gotta say, I usually at camp am wearing like double braids because, camp hair.
Uh-huh.
They did some excellent braids with those noodles when they made a sculpture of me. I gotta say, they looked better than some of my braids.
Oh my gosh.
They were on point.
Just,
It was so gross.
Oh,
It was, and then they're like sculpting
Hubba Bubba chocolate muddy noodle braids. Good.
condiments.
Good.
Yeah, and so they're just sculpting out of all of this with their hands.
Yeah.
It was great.
Oh, and again, I could see that would be. Okay, so who won? Was the
So we had
unexpected winners or expected winners?
We had
Our Kid Triumph.
we gave them bonus points if they did an imitation of us.
Okay.
And they did some great imitations. 2 teams, I will say, who should have been the front runners by their sculpting skills, lost.
Oh, okay.
Because of their attitude. I am big on attitude.
Wait, big hustle, bad attitude?
Yeah.
All right.
Yeah, so they lost points. They probably had the best sculptures, both of me. And they were both pointing fingers like, they copied us. They stole our noodles. And I was like, I'm sick of this. Like,
Amazing.
You lost points.
How does it make you feel to be sculpted out of gum mud noodle?
Honestly,
what's that feeling like?
I'm honored. I think it was probably a peak of my youth ministry experience.
Yeah.
And their imitations of me were also hilarious because big things I say all the time. I end every sermon with like, I love you guys. That's the biggest announcement of the day is I love you guys. So a lot of them were doing that. I love you, but also the things that I don't realize I say all the time.
Don't they spot it?
They had me.
Oh,
they had me.
Yeah.
Like, I'm always like, my dude, my girl. And little loves. I say little love. And they're like, little loves. I was like, is that what I sound like?
Like, they're crying from vomiting and you're crying from like the cold wash of reality of like, this is me. This is me. This is how I talk. This is it.
Yeah. So it was great.
I love it. Well, Shelby, one of the things that we've talked about, and part of Tulsa is such a unique community of youth ministry stuff, and you've gotten to work with multiple folks on your team and across town, different things. But what are some of the common challenges that are like youth ministry right now? Like, what are some of the things that like your team's talking about? What are some of the things that like in ministry peer groups, like what were the things that you would name? Are they fresh and different from 5-6 years ago? Are they evergreen? Like what are the things that are like the top of your list of like, this is the challenge of doing youth ministry really faithfully today?
Yeah. I think this might be a all-time thing, but I think it's only getting harder. Our students have so many options of, what I would call, like, I like to say labels.
Okay.
Of this is who I am. And other people can give me those labels. I can take on those labels about anything in life.
Yeah, yeah.
I mean, what I do, who I hang out with, you know,
who I'm into, who I want to be.
Yeah. And I feel like those labels used to be, maybe this was just from like when I was a kid, like I felt like easily removable. Like, okay, I don't want to be sporty girl anymore. Yeah. I want to be band girl. I don't know. You know, sporty spice, band spice.
Instead of Hot Topic, we go to Gap. We're good. Yeah, right. Yeah.
You know, you could change around a lot. And now I feel like those labels, once they're stuck on our students, they just stick.
Yeah.
And so a big challenge for us is the challenge that church has been facing forever is how do we show them really who God sees them? What does God label them as? Who are they actually?
Yeah.
I tell them all the time of it's not about who I am. It's whose I am.
Yeah.
And so I just feel like that fight is stronger than ever for us.
Well, and I think in some ways it's twofold because church in itself can be one more label, one of many, right?
Yeah.
And I feel like that's a little bit of some of the struggle is that like good Christian girl or Christian dude or church guy, like church boy, church girl, are like one of the many because it can feel like a competition of extracurriculars of like I'm in the band and I go to church or this and that, and it is that like cluster of the 2 or 3 things that make me who I am through like affinity or affiliation. But I think the other part is that like identity seems so pervasive online. Like there's not like even if you like moved schools, if you exist online,
it's there.
It's there. Short of like literally reinventing yourself or like, and I think that's why so many kids do the like fake Instagram or like really lean into like the gamer tag, Discord, Reddit, just because it's a chance to like try out who you are without it being like really damaging or like containing. And that's, I don't know, like thoughts.
Yeah, it's just, it feels impossible. Yeah. Like I feel for our students. I mean, obviously like my heart breaks for our students all the time because I think they're living in a world that is so much harder to grow up in. And so for us, it's just like reinforcing the same truths with a capital T over and over and over again. And I don't know, basically saying, listen, you don't need to feel the pressure to stick a label on yourself.
Yeah.
Like, here's what God says, here's what Scripture says. And as Christianese as it is, that's all that matters. Like, we're talking about eternity.
Yeah.
Focus on those things that are going to last. And again, you kind of mentioned like the extracurriculars. There's this pressure too to just perform and do all the things.
Yeah.
And I think it's easy, maybe just for our students, or I think students everywhere, that church becomes just another one of the extracurriculars on the schedule as well.
Yep.
Because they're busy.
Yeah.
And not that any of those things they're involved in are not good things, but it kind of just gets lost in the shuffle.
Yeah.
You know, am I going to be a college basketball player? Maybe. So I better be at every single extra practice
thing that I can.
You know,
increase the chances. Yeah,
exactly.
Yeah.
And it's hard, and they feel that pressure.
Well, you talked a little bit about the student leadership team being a big kind of like thing that's working right now.
Yeah.
Has there been anything that y'all have like adjusted or changed either in like content or programming or scheduling for some of the challenges of busy and not letting church fall into like the one of many identifiers? Like, how has that affected like your team's work?
So for us, one thing that our student leadership team has brought up, and we're trying to figure out how it works, because we want to make our stuff really easy for families too. We have families who have elementary, middle, high school, and trying to get everyone to all the places, even within the church, is hard sometimes.
Cutting across your campus from one end to the other could take a solid 6 minutes to 7 minutes.
Sure.
Yeah. Passing period at your church takes a minute.
Yes, exactly. So we want to make it easy, but a lot of our high schoolers especially, and part of it is because they want quality time with each other, is just the high school ministry, but also some of them have later practices, and it's hard to get there on a Wednesday night specifically. So some of them are like, can we do like late night worship? And they're calling like late night, you know, like 9:30, which I will say is late for me.
Yeah. I've heard it said that if you're 40, anything after 9 requires a nap before.
Oh, Listen, I will unashamedly tell you that I'm in bed most nights at 8:30.
See, there you go.
And I love it. But I'm not an early riser either.
Oh.
I'm a sleep person.
Wait, hold on. Wait, how's that? Just 8:30 to 8:30. It's great. Half on,
No,
half
but for
on.
real,
No,
that's like prime.
That sounds great.
If I'm left to my own devices, that's where it's at.
Amazing.
But our students have asked, like, can we do occasional worship nights that go later? Like, so maybe some of our friends who really are tied up can get there and not feel like they've missed anything, and just some extra quality time. So that's something we've been looking at as we look to revamp some of our Wednesday night midweek service.
Yeah.
And also we're trying to look at, this is kind of like an all church movement, but some events just for fun's sake.
Yeah.
And we do some throughout the year, but being really intentional. It doesn't have to be crazy, it doesn't have to be wild, but just a simple, like, we're doing a volleyball night. There's no rhyme or reason except we want to play volleyball.
We're doing it. We like volleyball. Yeah,
just those drop-in events that, hey, maybe this kid does have a tournament this week, and they didn't get to come to small groups or Wednesday night, but they know that we're going to be tailgating before the Jinx Union game on Friday, and they can be there.
Yep.
Stuff like that.
Well, that's one of the things, and again, it's a mixed message, I know, for some to hear, but small groups are really hard to get into if you aren't in the habit of being in the small group.
Yeah.
I don't think folks realize how countercultural a in-person round table circle of chairs small groups is if you aren't already part of the group. Like, rolling up on that as someone who's never been a part of it or who's like way in and out on it is like, it's a big ask.
Oh,
like,
yeah.
It's
And it's been a blessing to us. Like, I will say for us and our ministry, small groups has been probably the most consistent thing we have done. We've been blessed with great
holds
volunteers.
Them there. It keeps them there, holds them there. Yeah.
And for us, when we encourage a new student, I'm like, listen, I know it's tough, like you said, to show up to that small group for the first time. Our small groups are always open.
Yeah.
I'm like, just trust me.
Yeah.
That's your on-ramp.
Yeah.
You're going to get to know that crew so well that Sundays at a bigger church are easier. You find your people. Wednesdays, you're not going to want to miss because you know your whole crew is there. And for us, it's been one of the biggest blessings. But that first step with a small group, it's tough, but we've found the blessings multiply.
Is that something that I know for your adult leaders or student leaders, like how is that part of some of their like conversations or training, or like how do you help from the folks that are already involved help make that first step easier? Is that a
big thing? Is we just say over and over and over again to our students and our volunteer leaders, all of our small groups are led by 2 volunteer adults.
Okay.
We have a ton. They're the best. And it's just saying, hey, your group is always open, even if you've been together for the past 7 years.
Yeah.
I
Keeping
will tell
that
them,
newcomer mindset.
Yeah. Keep them like in mind. Be ready to welcome anybody. Don't make it a closed off clique.
Yeah.
Because it's not.
Yeah.
And see it as what the words I use is a tiny church.
Yeah.
Like, the church doors are never shut to anyone. Anyone can walk in new on a Sunday morning at any point. And so for our small groups, that's your tiny church. Expect someone to walk in. Expect someone to be new. And then welcome them just the same as you would to our church.
Yeah.
So
that's good. Well, and I think that framework of that this isn't your small group, but this is a small representation of our church.
Yeah.
With a level expectation is, I don't know, like, I think for some folks, like, we think about youth ministry more than our adult leaders do, unless we remind them.
Yeah, and it's true.
Yeah. Okay, friend, what are some things you're still doing for you to grow? I mean, you've school, seminary, 6 years in it.
Yeah.
How is Shelby still continuing to grow in your like depth, leadership, enjoyment? Like you talked about, maybe they had this summer being more about self-care, soul care, but like what are some of the things that you're like learning, reading, listening to?
Yeah. So I would say the past year, so going from year 5 to year 6, that was a big flip year for me. 5 years just felt like, okay, I made it this far and this is a milestone, but I got to keep going. Like, it's not the peak. It's, we're just still climbing. And I've been a huge proponent to our students, to our families, just about mental health and about counseling, that counseling, everyone should be in counseling. I think whether you're on the highest of mountaintops or the lowest lows, everyone needs counseling, just tools in the tool belt. But I had really neglected that, honestly, and got to kind of taste my own medicine. Went through like what I'd call the 5-year funk, honestly. And I just realized, like, man, I need to talk to someone, like outside of where I work, outside of my friends, someone who just knows me as an individual, and got started with an excellent counselor. And I gotta say, the past year of being counseling anywhere from every 3 to 6 weeks of just someone else removed from the church, removed from my family, removed from my friends, who holds me accountable, who checks on me, that has been the biggest blessing for me, like at home, in ministry, in leadership. I mean, someone who also loves the Lord and can check my spirit too. When I'm like, hey, here's where I'm at. Here's what's happening at work on our team. And she can look at me and go, yeah, that's you.
Oh.
And I can go, great.
Yeah.
Let's work on that. Let's fix that.
Yeah.
Honestly, that's been huge. Just, I think we can all benefit from continued self-awareness. I'm not the same person I was when I started this job 6 years ago.
Yeah.
And sometimes I have to be reminded of that, and I need to be pushed towards that. And counseling this past year has just been stellar for growth for me. And, you know, that's on top of just my personal daily reading, devotions. I don't know, it's just, I think, added more discipline in my life, more accountability in my life that was very needed. Yeah. That's been the biggest thing for me in the past year.
Well, and it's really powerful to hear you say, because I think for some folks, when they hear counseling or therapy, it's like, well, this is the thing I have to do like every week for whatever. But this is a 3 to 6 week check-in. And this may not be every Monday for you. This may be a, it's literally mental health. It may be a some people don't go to the dentist, though. That's a bad example. But it's often as it needs to be, and it may not be like, it may not be crisis, or it may not be like so conditioned that it's all the time. But the hope is exactly what you're sharing, the tools. It's not just like, I'm going to get it all said, but it may be some of the tools that have been helpful that way.
Yeah, and for me too, like, I feel a real burden of, I don't need to be on all the time in ministry, but I do need to be as healthy as possible for my students' sake. Like, how can I lead them somewhere where I am not already going? And so many of them, like, share struggles and share about their mental health. And I'm like, well, here am I, like, also dealing with all the things right alongside you, trying to be the best I can be, for their sake. And I don't know, it's just been good.
That's good. That's good. Well, and I think that's one of those, you said it, we'll say it again for the people in the back, like, your students need the healthiest version of you, which is not to create extra stress or pressure, but if there are things in your life of sleep, how you're caring for yourself, who you're talking to, who's holding you accountable, that ministry isn't just like effort and exertion of like what you can give, but it's a discipleship. It's modeling, right? It's like, and this is the way in which I'm taking my own self seriously. This is the way in which, faith is not just like my job, but is a deep, deep matter to me.
For sure.
So, okay. Give us a little bit, what are some things that you would want younger ministry? You have folks in your staff that are younger in ministry. What are some of the things that you hope to like Shelby wizen them to without having them having to learn it the hard way?
Oh gosh, that could be a book. That could be its own book. I just think one thing I wish I had known, like first starting out, is how important two groups of people are in like early ministry days. One is the parents of your students.
Yes, preach.
Yeah, and I knew that. I'd had professors.
Why do we always forget about them in the beginning?
Yeah, I had professors tell me that. Like, I knew that. Yeah. Up here in the head.
It's like of every 3 breakout sessions at a conference, it's mentioned, and yeah.
But for me, like, I gotta say, not only just getting to know the parents of my students, but they have been such a blessing to me. Like a support and encouragement. I can call them. I can talk to them. Now Asbury's a big place. I don't know all of them on that level, but how important it was to build relationship more than just like, hey, that's what kid you belong to. Great. Yeah. But really getting to know them, when we need extra help. Yeah. Who do I know that I can call up? Yeah. Just stuff like that. And I got to say, in a bigger church like Asbury, it's hard to feel like you belong occasionally, even on staff, like coming into a new place, a new church.
Everybody's just performing their function. Everybody's just doing their role, doing their job or whatever.
And I was so blessed by like parents in our ministry who were like, hey, I want to know you as a person, not just as my kids.
Yeah.
You
Not
know,
just like
youth
the youth
pastor.
director. Yeah.
And I still have that. And, you know, this past year has been crazy, you know, in my life, in our family's life. My husband and I suffered like losing our daughter. And I got to say, the people who showed up first, you know, outside of our families was the parents of my students. I mean, in droves. And just knowing like I couldn't be physically with their kids at that point, and yet they're still showing up for me and still showing up for my husband and our family, that was huge. And I wish 6 years ago I had realized how crucial those relationships would be for me. Like, they keep me going just as much as the students do. So the parents of our students, and I gotta say my team, like, I wish I had known how important that team was going to be to me. I mean, and our team has changed a ton in 6 years. And I grew up smaller church with one youth pastor, and that was normal, and that's all I knew. And then I get hired at Asbury, and they're like, hey, you're going to be one of 4.
Right.
I'm like,
what will the other 3 do?
okay, yeah. I mean, kind of. I was like, what are they there for?
Yeah. Why? Oh, okay.
And I've worked with incredible people. I've been blessed, and there were seasons in that early time where I was like, okay, we're just coworkers, and we are like we
just working alongside each other.
Yeah, we work in the office next to each other, but then
just making the donuts. Yeah.
Then you build the relationships, and those people have become my friends, whether they're still on our team or on our team currently. Like, they're still my friends. They're still who I call. Currently, our team, they're a blessing. I love coming to work with the people I work with.
Yeah.
They make it fun.
Okay, but what are some of the ways, have there been things that because you're leading the team, what are some of the ways in which maybe you're leading differently? Or, I mean, it's one thing to take stock, especially you play enough camps together and have to like live in community together. That will change you. But like, what are some ways that you're leading it differently now? So those like kind of like recognition and awareness.
I think for me, it's been a balance of, I'm a very task-oriented person. So, like, my checklist is my love language, and I can get really tied into, like, here's what we got to do this week. Here's what's coming up for camp. Did you meet your deadline? Did you do this? Have you ordered the buses? Do we have food for Wednesday night? And I can get in that mindset pretty easily. But really taking the time with each individual person that I'm responsible for leading and knowing what's going on in their life personally. You know, making time for us to have fun together. Yeah. You know, we just got a new switch for our student ministry coming soon.
Yeah.
So we had to.
It was in the office first. I mean, it was the office switch before it was the youth room switch.
I mean, I'm not gonna lie. Like, it showed up and we're like, well, we got to make sure this works, make sure the projector works,
but
and
have
everything.
You played Wii basketball?
I have not. Oh, I have not.
Oh, Wii basketball is so fun.
Okay.
It's so good. Yeah.
The next thing on the list. But we hung out. We spent a little time doing a little Mario Kart. And I'm horrible.
I say, who's best in the office?
I'm gonna get in trouble for this. I just watched one session.
Okay.
I think it's Jet right now.
Okay.
But Blake's a dog.
Shout out for Jet. Blake. Hey, Blake, pick it up a notch, bud. Yeah. You gotta start throwing them heavies around.
Yeah. It can't be worse than me though. I'm horrible. Okay. I'm awful. But I would just say, like, it's very easy to get task-oriented, details-oriented, and then not be people-oriented on a team, especially when you're leading. Yeah. And so knowing what my team is going through, like, if they're having a hard time, that is going to affect what happens in the office. Yeah. So we need to be aware. We need to encourage. We need to support. And, again, I have been blessed by that. Yeah. I've been blessed by an awesome team. And when I can look at them and say, hey, I'm your leader, but I am going through it. Yeah. I have been blessed by them to go, okay, then we're going to pick it up and we're going to pick you up and we're just, we're going to be okay. That's been huge. So I wish I had known back then how important the families, the parents, and then the team that you work with, whether that's a small staff, another person, a volunteer crew, like those people matter on a personal level.
That's good.
Yeah.
That's good. Well, Shelby, friend, thanks for coming by the garage today.
Dude, this was the best.
It's so good. So if folks want to stay connected with you, what are some ways which they can reach out, connect, learn more, hear what you are doing in ministry?
Yeah, for sure. You follow me on Instagram. That's the best way. Millis_Lynn, Millis.
Wait, no Shelby at all? Right.
Yeah. Well, okay. The backstory. My maiden name was Hood.
Yeah.
Which was a cool maiden name. That's a great last name.
Hood is strong. Hood is strong.
Yeah, Hood is great. Babe, if you're watching this, Millis is great. I love being Mrs. Millis.
So
it's
nice.
lovely.
Right.
But Hood was
Ms.
great.
Hood, though. Ms. Hood, like
Mrs.
that.
Hood.
This sounds strong.
Yeah. So my Instagram handle used to be Hoodie Lynn.
Oh,
that was the original.
Okay.
And so then I got married and I was like, what do I do? I don't want to do anything. Okay, Millis_Lynn it is.
There it is. Okay.
But also like follow us at Asbury Students.
Check
See
out
what
what's
we're
going
about.
on. Yeah.
Hang out. You get to see our goofy faces doing random stuff and playing gross games. Probably me gagging a lot of the time on those gross games.
Oh, I'm going to go process whatever a gum mud noodle sculpture is.
I have pictures. I'll show you later.
Snap.